You feel it before you understand it. A curl in your lip, a wrinkle across your nose, a gag rising in your throat. That reaction is not random. It is a 200,000-year-old poison detector wired into your brain long before you had language to explain why spoiled milk makes you recoil, or why a stranger's cough makes you step back without thinking. Here is the question that should unsettle you. Why does disgust feel exactly the same whether you're looking at rotting meat, a maggot-covered corpse, or someone cheating their business partner? Why does your face do the same thing? Nose scrunched, upper lip raised, tongue slightly out, for a smell and for a moral betrayal. That overlap is not a coincidence. It's a clue, and it points to something ancient sitting underneath your everyday reactions. Start with the face itself. Charles Darwin noticed it in the 1870s, a specific expression, nearly identical across every culture he observed, that people made in response to foul smells and foul tastes. He called it the disgust face. But it was Paul Rozin, a psychologist at the University of Pennsylvania, who spent decades studying this exact expression, who pushed the question further. Why does this one facial configuration, closed nostrils, narrowed eyes, retracted upper lip, show up in a toddler refusing broccoli and an adult recoiling from a corpse? Rozin's answer, built from years of cross-cultural experiments in the 1980s and 1990s, was that disgust is not a learned social nicety. It's a rejection system. Its job is to stop things from entering your body. Now put yourself in the scenario. Imagine you're handed 2 glasses of juice. One looks completely normal. The other has a single, sterilized, dead cockroach dropped in it and then removed. Rationally, the juice is identical. Chemically, nothing has changed, but you will not drink the second glass. Rozin ran versions of this exact test, and almost no one does. Your gut isn't calculating chemistry. It's running a much older program. Contamination logic. Once something disgusting touches an object, that object is marked permanently in your mind as unsafe, even after the contaminant is gone. That's not irrational. That's a survival shortcut, built for a world where you couldn't test food in a lab. You needed a snap judgment. Disgust was that judgment. This is where the poison detector idea gets its teeth. Valerie Curtis, an epidemiologist at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, spent years cataloging what disgusts people across dozens of countries, different diets, different religions, different climates, and the list of top triggers was strikingly consistent. Bodily fluids, corpses, spoiled food, open wounds, parasites, and signs of disease on other people's skin. Curtis argued that disgust isn't a cultural invention layered onto us by upbringing. It's a behavioral immune system, a second line of defense that works alongside your actual immune system, catching threats before they ever reach your bloodstream. Your white blood cells fight pathogens once they're inside you. Disgust fights them before they get the chance. Think about what that means for something as simple as picking up a plate at a restaurant and noticing a hair on it. You don't reason your way to refusing the meal. You don't run a risk calculation. Your body decides for you instantly, and that decision feels like fact. That's the poison detector firing exactly as it was built to fire. 250,000 years after it first evolved, in a kitchen it was never designed for. But here's where the story gets stranger, and where the real twist sits. If disgust exists purely to keep pathogens out of your mouth, why does it also fire for things with no biological threat at all? Cheating spouses, corrupt politicians, someone cutting in line. Joshua Tybur, a psychologist at Vrije Universiteit Amsterdam, spent years studying exactly this puzzle. His research split disgust into 3 separate channels. Pathogen disgust, the original one, aimed at literal contamination. Sexual disgust, aimed at reproductively risky choices, and moral disgust, aimed at social cheaters and rule breakers. Tybur's argument is that evolution didn't build a new system for morality. It repurposed the old one. The same neural circuitry that once protected you from spoiled meat now fires when you watch someone betray a friend. Your brain is borrowing hardware. It didn't invent a new alarm for social violation. It recycled the poison detector. That's an unsettling thought, if you sit with it. It means the wave of revulsion you feel toward a liar might be running on the same biological wiring as the wave of revulsion you feel toward spoiled fish. Your body may not fully distinguish between a moral threat and a literal one. And that repurposing has a dark side, which is where the story turns from fascinating to genuinely cautionary. Mark Schaller, a psychologist at the University of British Columbia, has spent years researching what he calls the behavioral immune system's overcorrection problem. Because your ancient disgust detector can't run a lab test on every stranger, it uses crude signals, unfamiliarity, visible skin differences, coughing, limping, foreignness, as stand-ins for disease risk. Schaller's studies found that when people feel more vulnerable to illness, even temporarily, their prejudice toward outsiders measurably increases. The poison detector, in other words, sometimes can't tell the difference between an actual pathogen and a person who simply looks unfamiliar. It was built for a small tribal world of a few hundred people, where anyone new might genuinely carry an unknown disease. In your world of billions of strangers, that same circuit can misfire into xenophobia, into unfair snap judgments about people who did nothing wrong except look different from you. So the detector that keeps you alive can also make you unfair. That's the twist worth sitting with. The exact mechanism protecting you from poison is the same one capable of poisoning your judgment about other people. Bring this into your own life for a second. Notice the next time you feel a flash of revulsion toward spoiled food. Yes, but also toward a stranger's habits, someone's appearance, an unfamiliar cuisine, even your own past mistakes. That flash isn't proof of danger. It's a 200,000-year-old alarm doing its best guess with incomplete information. You can pause before you act on it. You can ask whether it's tracking a real, physical threat, or whether it's borrowed circuitry firing at something merely unfamiliar. That single pause, recognizing the mechanism instead of obeying it blindly, is one of the more useful things you can do with this knowledge in ordinary daily life, whether you're deciding whether food is truly spoiled or whether a person truly deserves your judgment. So the next time your lip curls and your nose wrinkles, remember what's actually happening. You're not being irrational. You're hearing from a survival system older than language, older than agriculture, older than every culture that ever tried to explain it with taboos and manners. Disgust was never about being polite. It was about staying alive long enough to pass on the genes that build that same reaction in you. The poison detector still works. The only real question is whether you'll question what it's pointing at, or simply trust the alarm, the same way your ancestors did, 200,000 years before you were ever born to feel it.